So far, we have seen reading from narrow perspective. Narrow perspective, according to researchers, is the angle which looks at reading from psycholinguistic purposes, or how some of the variables are at play when while reading the text. So now we're gonna look at reading from broader perspective. Broader perspective means the perspective which entails reading from literacy perspective. So we'll look at reading from literacy perspective, how it's related to literacy skills. So narrow perspective sees reading from that it's largely concerned with psycholinguistic processes. For example, what's going on in the minds of the readers, how well they are motivated, or their psychosocial processes like affective filters, their anxiety, their motivation, their aptitude, or their comprehension skills. So the narrow perspective also deals with how well the reader can comprehend the text. I mean, how they can skim and scan, how how well they infer the message of a particular text in a particular context. So literacy deals with reading as a social practice. It not only it goes beyond psycholinguistic, and it goes beyond reader as an individual being. Rather, it sees literacy sees reading as a social practice, how it's influenced by the socio-cultural context in which the text actually takes place. So in other words, we cannot separate the text from its social or cultural or economic or religious context. Rather, it's important to see to what extent it's influenced or it's integrated to its particular social and cultural context. So um, literacy actually doesn't see reading as a set of skills which reader can acquire and apply. I mean, it rises above the study skills model. Rather, it's about socializing students to the norms and traditions of reading. So if the broader perspective lays emphasis on if the students are familiar with the norms and with the social norms and traditions of reading, they can do well in terms of critically analyzing a particular text. So literacy deals with the use of reading in its daily life. For instance, um, if you are at the bank, you are filling in the form, or you are filling in the check. So you are reading different set of things. So here, reading is bound by its social context, which is the bank, the the discourse of the bank. So the broader perspective, which is the literacy perspective, sees reading that it should be taught in its social and cultural context. So it's the job of you people as EFL teachers to motivate students to read well in their social and cultural contexts. So literacy is such a fluid term. There is not a single definition of literacy, nor it's universal. Rather, it means how actually one learns things in their social and cultural context. So literacy and reading are quite interrelated, because it's through reading that we come across literacy, and it's literacy which engenders the skills of reading. So literacy is a cognitive skill, which is to what extent we need certain skills in order to decode a text at workplace, in the education sector or while interacting with other people. So learning to read according to literacy perspective, according to broader perspective, is just like cooking. So you know how to cook, what are the ingredients for making particular dish. So similarly, you need to develop certain skills which can be used in its particular social context. So there are different ways of literacy. For example, Leah and Street, one of the key advocates of academic literacy's approach, which I have used in my PhD research and which I found very useful as a theoretical framework to analyze feedback experiences of second language students. So they are the main advocates of literacy, that it should have a more social perspective. So it I mean, how to read leaflets in the bank are contextually influenced by the discourse of the bank. So literacy actually not only varies from context to context. If you are, for example, when you are in the university, you are reading in a different context. When you are at work, you are reading in a different context. So it varies from context to context, from culture to culture. So literacy sees reading having its certain norms, traditions, and conventions. So apart from what's going on in the minds of the reader, it's the job of the English teacher to teach some of the norms and discourses of literacy. So literacy is what society achieves, and what literacy contributes to reading. So this is how the broader perspective sees reading from literacy point of view, that reading is not only a study skills model or socialization model. Rather, it's more than knowing the norms, traditions, and particular discourse of reading in a particular social and cultural context.